How does a boy with no money, no connections, and a pile of failures goes on to build one of the happiest places in the world? This is the story of a man who dreamed bigger, failed harder, and still went on to become an entertainment giant, Disney. But before he became a legend, Walt was just a kid with a pencil and a wild imagination. Walt Disney was born on December 5th, 1901 in Chicago. It wasn't the big cities that inspired him. Rather, it was a small farm in Marceline, Missouri, where young Walt fell in love with drawing and storytelling. His childhood in Marceline was filled with animals, trees, and open wild spaces. This was the birthplace of his creativity. He found inspiration in nature and animals, which later showed up in his characters Bambi and Simba. When Walt was 10, his family had to move and times were tough. His father would struggle to make ends meet.
My dad sold the farm, but then he had to auction all the stock and things. And it was in the cold of the winter, and I remember Roy myself going out and going all around to the different little towns and places, tacking up these posters of the auctions.
Young Walt, like so many other dreamers, faced rejection. He would go door to door to sell his paintings, even for a penny or two. He even worked as a newspaper delivery boy, waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning to deliver papers, long before the world knew his name. After high school, Walt moved to Kansas City to pursue his love for animation. He started a small company called Laugh-O-Grams, hoping to turn fairy tales into short films. Walt had no formal education, except for some time in Chicago and at the art school in Kansas City. He drew inspiration from Edward Muybridge's book, The Human Figure in Motion. He then borrowed another book that laid out the basics of animation and filmmaking. He carefully read about creating characters and drawing figures on plain paper. By mounting each frame on pegs and shooting them one at a time with a borrowed camera, he began to create an illusion of movement. This brought his first flavor of fame. Although the company had a promising start, Walt was still inexperienced. He poured all his heart and money into the venture and went bankrupt at the age of 22. But here's the thing about Walt. He didn't give up. With only $40 and a suitcase, Walt went to LA. In his mind, failure wasn't the end. Rather, it was just the start of something new. But what came next not only changed his life, but also the entertainment industry forever. In Hollywood, Walt partnered with his brother Roy Disney to start a small animation business. They found some early success with a character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. But disaster struck again. Walt discovered that the distributor had stolen the rights for the character Oswald and had lured away all his animators. Walt was devastated, but instead of feeling dejected, he got to work. In a moment of desperation, he came up with a character that became a symbol of his empire.
Oh boy, you're here! We're gonna have so much fun together!
Mickey Mouse. The idea of Mickey Mouse came to Walt while he was traveling back home, and it was inspired by a pet mouse that he had. But here's a fun fact. The original name of Mickey wasn't Mickey. It was Mortimer Mouse. But Walt's wife, Lillian Disney, convinced him to change it. Now, Mickey Mouse wasn't just a cartoon. Walt had a revolutionary idea, which was to pair his animation with sound. The result was Steamboat Willie, the first ever synchronized sound cartoon. When it premiered in 1928, it was a sensation. Mickey became an overnight success, and Walt was on his path to greatness. But even with Mickey's fame, Walt wasn't satisfied. He dreamed bigger. In 1937, Walt took one of the biggest risks of his career. Disney gambled everything on the success of this product. Bank of America, that had backed Walt's venture, acting the role of a financial godfather to the studio, had a pretty tense evening on the premiere night. While most studios were focused on short films, Walt had a vision for something that nobody had done before, a full-length animated feature film. His friends called it Walt's Folly, and industry insiders predicted that it would be a complete disaster. The project nearly bankrupted the studio. Walt mortgaged his home, poured every penny in this project, and pushed his animators to the brink. But the result? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When it premiered, Snow White was a blockbuster hit, grossing $200 million in today's dollars. But it wasn't the financial success. It changed animation forever. Walt had proven that animation could tell stories with the same emotional depth and complexity as live action films. Walt wasn't done yet. In 1950s, he came up with a dream of a place where families and children could have fun together. His dream was called Disneyland, and it was like nothing the world had ever seen. People thought that Walt had lost his mind. A theme park for kids and adults? But Walt wasn't creating a simple amusement park. It was a world of magic. On July 17, 1955, Disneyland opened its doors to the public.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world. Thank you.
And despite some hiccups, the place became one of the happiest places in the world.
Well, kids, Babes in Toyland is finished. Now it's time to celebrate.
Finally, Walt's vision of storytelling extended beyond screens into physical spaces where imagination came to life. Walt Disney's legacy did not come to an end with Mickey Mouse, Snow White, or Disneyland. Rather, today Walt Disney Company owns Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and Fox. But it all started with a boy who loved to draw and was fond of storytelling. And as Walt himself said, if you can dream it, you can do it. Thank you for joining today. And if you found this video valuable, then please check out my other two videos which are linked over here.